Hi, Joan. How are you? Welcome back to Vegan Pulse.
Hi, Nancy. So glad to be back on Vegan Pulse. I love the background, the colorful background you have. I especially like the saying you have up there that says all living beings are connected, because that's actually the primary reason why my co-author, Dr. Camila Perusello, and I wrote this book, Vegan Made Easy, because we are ethical vegans. And actually, the dedication page to the book has a picture of a chick because we want to really remind viewers, listeners, and readers that going plant-based, even though, of course, you're going to get the extraordinary health benefits, the most important central thing is how we connect with other beings, that we don't unnecessarily exploit and kill other animals. So that's why we were really motivated to write this book and also to give practical tools for anybody that's starting their vegan journey.
And your Vegan Made Easy book presents veganism as a compassionate, health enhancing, and environmentally restorative way of living. The book serves as both an accessible introduction, but also a comprehensive guide that offers a thoughtful overview of vegan philosophy, inclusive of the scientific evidence behind plant-based nutrition and the global impacts of animal agriculture.
Exactly. And I want to mention that Camila is an award-winning food scientist. And so she knows so much about the ins and outs of nutrition, about processed foods, about ingredients, about food labeling. So we wanted to provide readers with a truth-based, science-based introduction to veganism. The book also includes tips on shopping, how to prepare meals, social challenges. We have a whole section of the book with some of the most common questions that people ask when they're starting to go vegan. And then a
And
whole bunch of resources and recipes, including some of yours. So, yeah, I hope people will buy this book. And, I even tell vegans, buy the book so you can give it to someone else.
well, it also, one of the other things that I like is that it emphasizes that adapting a vegan lifestyle is not an all or nothing kind of leap, but a personal journey that can unfold at your own comfortable pace. And as you said, it's you said if you're vegan, buy the book so you could give it away. If you're vegan, buy a book, buy two books, one for yourself, one to give away, because it really is a practical tool. Like you said, it has frequently asked questions, but it also has shopping guides, as you said, recipes, but it also breaks down like all the facets or a lot of facets of veganism, like its impact on the earth, on your health, and so on. So it's kind of like a little reference book.
Right. And sometimes with so-called new diets, people get the idea that, oh, I have to shop for these expensive ingredients, or, oh, this is a complicated diet. I have to count calories. I have to do all these complicated things. But actually, as you know, going vegan really is about simplification. It's going back to eating whole plant foods. And we actually include some of the most easy recipes that readers can put together. It doesn't at all have to be expensive. Um, and one of the recommendations in the book is like create like a recipe log. Keep track of, hey, this is a good recipe I found for a vegan lasagna, or this is a great fake tuna sandwich filling, or this is a great stew that has all kinds of plant foods in it and whole grains and nuts and seeds. It doesn't take long to actually come up with a group of recipes that you can go back to over and over again. So, as the title of the book says, we're trying to make this an easy journey for everybody.
Exactly. And as awareness grows about the health benefits of plant-based diets, uh, what do you hope readers take away from the book, Vegan Made Easy, that will stay with them long after they finish reading the book?
Right. Yeah, I hope that people, number one, understand that educating yourself is so important. There's a lot of misinformation out there. I don't know if you saw the most recent food pyramid that was put out. This actually, it's an inverted pyramid. I know. And it says something like, what does it say? Something about eat real food. So it has pictures of animal product foods along with the fruits and veggies, but it just doesn't make sense. So I'm hoping that people understand the basics of nutrition. There's many times throughout the book where we point out the health damages of an animal-centric diet, many of which, of course, are backed by scientific studies. So we want readers to understand that as soon as you start going vegan, you're going to start seeing the health benefits almost immediately.
Right.
Another thing is that I have found that oftentimes people who start out for health reasons, because they're understanding what it does for their well-being, their sense of inner compassion, it really opens them up to seeing the world in a more connected way, realizing that the animal that formerly was on your plate was an individual with an interest in living just as strong as yours. So I think veganism, it goes so much beyond diet to establishing a sense of kindness and inner peace, both for yourself and for others.
And ever since I started, when I first started, I looked at all the facets of veganism. I always consider veganism really. I mean, we know that it's mainly about the cruelty to the animals, but I believe that it's a social. It's bigger than that, because it's a social justice movement. And what I like about the book is that your core message highlights veganism as an expression of kindness towards animals, a path to improve personal well-being, and a meaningful contribution to make this a more sustainable climate healing world. And these are three major concepts of veganism that people don't talk about so much. I mean, we do talk about the health benefits, but with the climate deniers,
Mhm.
when they talk about conferences and then they serve up hamburgers,
Yes.
it's kind of, how do you call it? Not it's kind of moronic, actually. If you're talking about, saving the planet, and you're serving up one of the main destructions of the planet, it's kind of like you don't have your things aligned. And the same thing when it comes to your health, right? Because
Mm,
a lot of doctors don't have nutritional education, although
exactly.
Dr. Bernard and others are trying to change that. But in the meantime, if you get one of these doctors that are not those doctors that are how do they call it, a lifestyle
Right.
based doctor, right, which would include everything, then they're telling you, if they tell you what to eat erroneously, they're telling you stuff that's not true.
Exactly. And you brought up about, I think, the COP conference, and Silas Rao, of course.
Of
And
course.
he used to go to the global conferences, but I think he's since decided that he is not going to go to another global conference until the entire diet, the entire set of meals offered is totally vegan. It just speaks to the disconnection in terms of the climate. You could say that it's kind of hard to see the direct connection every day between your food choices and what's happening with the climate because we're talking about a global atmospheric scientific sort of influence that is really kind of hard to visually see every day, which is why I think the health avenue in some ways is for a lot of people the best place to start because it's about your own health. But
Right.
I think that another aspect is that we've become so disconnected from the cruelty of animal agriculture. I read that the amount of animals killed every year is like over 2,000 times the number of human deaths that happen on the planet. It's just sort of like this invisible, horrible violence that's under our lives that people are just so conditioned to not seeing. But I think things are starting to change. I hope they will.
I think slowly, as people, as yourself and myself and others, go out there and take the initiative to talk about this, because this is something like the government, pharma, and animal agriculture don't want to really promote because that takes money from their pocket. Okay, and we know that this government is all about money in their pocket, but even before that, those organizations are about money in their pocket. So, to think that we had this food pyramid, right? And then they turned it around, and then they're telling you to drink milk, but not, 2% or whatever. No, drink, like whole milk. So obviously, these individuals do not really care about our health,
No.
because if they did, that pyramid would not exist, right?
Right, right.
They don't care about our planet, because if they did, when they're talking about climate and environment and sustainability, then veganism should come into that discussion, and it doesn't. They don't care about the animals. Heck, they don't care about us. So why are they going to care about animals, right? They don't care about
Right.
the human animal, and they don't care about the regular animal, right? So why would you listen to them? I mean, you need to, like, get that conditioning out of your head and start to understand that you need to research for yourself, because you can't
Exactly.
rely on them to do what's best for you. And we know that more and more so, especially in this government right now. But anyway, let me stop there. But anyway, that's so what I'm trying to say is that you need to search out the information for yourself. Climate change is real. I mean, we see it with the different situations that happen, climate events that we have,
Right.
the floodings, everything. I mean, the sinkholes and everything that's happening, and we're degrading our soil, our water, our air. So we need to stop listening to them, because they don't care that they're attacking the water, the air, and the soil. So when we don't have any of that, these individuals that are not promoting veganism have a lot of money. So they can go wherever, they could do whatever. But the rest of us, right?
Right.
We have to look out for ourselves and for our community, because somebody has to.
Exactly. And you bring up such an important point because we're living in really negative times. When you look at what's happening, I'm not going to get into politics, but just generally speaking, we are living in some very serious times. And the thing we need to do is really, as you say, focus on the fact that we as individuals can dictate our own reality. We can make our own choices about what food we choose to eat. We can make our own choices of the kinds of people that we include in community activities, doing good in the community, being of service to others. There's so much that at the ground root level at the grassroots level that we can do. Every single one of us, we put out a certain kind of energy. And it's up to us to put out those positive messages of change and what we can do. And I think people like you and I, we serve as like role models almost. I'm sure you've had people come up to you and say, "Gosh, you look so beautiful. What do you do to stay so healthy? You have so much energy." And sometimes just being who you are and people see you, you become kind of an idea of, gee, I see how being vegan has helped her lead a more energetic and healthy life. Gee, maybe I'll give that a try. So I think that we need to really individually empower ourselves and educate ourselves. Now, down the line, as a whole, society may not change. Ray Sakura, right? Of course. Um, I was visiting her and Jim at their beautiful home, and she was saying to me, well, it may just be that as a species, we don't succeed. The planet will go on. I mean, the planet itself won't be destroyed. It just may be that due to humanity's choices, we may extinguish ourselves, you know? And I know that's kind of a negative message, but then it goes back again to, well, as an individual, I'm going to do the choices that I know are right for me and that I'm doing it on the right side of history. I'm making that positive impact, and every one of us can do that.
For sure. And, and right now, what we need the most is kindness, compassion, empathy, and veganism, surrounds itself, or, it's just made up of just that. That's the whole ideal behind veganism, kindness, compassion, and empathy, not just for human animals, for animals, the planet, for our community, for everybody. So promoting veganism is promoting compassion as well. But what I want to know is, was there a particular piece of data or research that surprised you or strengthened your commitment to veganism when you were writing the book?
Yeah, probably. Let's see. Now, I've been vegan for about 12 years now, and about 10, 12 years ago was really when the awareness about the climate crisis was coming to the fore. So I think that had a real influence upon me. And then I think us longtime vegetarians, I think a lot of us just kind of come to a point where we feel like, gee, this is not right. I'm still, as a vegetarian, contributing to animal cruelty. And we need to be patient with people. And I point out my example. I'm not one of these vegans that was vegan for 30 years. I was vegetarian first. But I think my example shows that, yeah, at any point, you can make the change. And we're not here to judge people to say, oh, you shouldn't have been vegetarian. You should have been vegan right away. How come you didn't make the change sooner? It's not about that at all. As long as we're motivating people to move in the right direction, that is what counts, and we should celebrate that.
For sure. And that's why, on the Vegan Pulse, I like to bring out different individuals' journey, and not just necessarily the people that are famous, but everyday people like you and I, to show others in our community that it doesn't have to be like someone who's just like Dr. Bernard or Dr. you know what I'm saying? Or Dr. Davis or all the other ones, Milton Mills, whatever. You could just be regular, day-to-day person like me, and you decide, hey, you come to this, and then you decide, hey, this is the way I want to be because this aligns more with my ethics. And you were talking about your journey, how it may come, be more patient. For myself, 20 years ago, I tried to go vegetarian, my downfall was that, well, I said I'm going to go vegetarian, but I really didn't know what that meant. I didn't research it. I just thought in my head I knew what that was. So I started eating pasta and salads, and after a month I was like, I'm dying. I need, animal flesh. It is true. I need animal flesh. But it wasn't true. And then so I stopped being vegetarian at that time. And then I tried it again when I met my partner because he was raw. He ate raw. He had a raw diet. And so he knew, and he'd been doing it for 20 years or so, and he knew the nutrition information that I should have looked up when I decided to go vegetarian, right? And then maybe I would not have failed. But then with his help, and of course, my friend Mike, I became vegan. And then, 12 years later, here I am, vegan for the animals and trying to make amends to the animals for all of my years that I didn't listen or didn't become vegan.
Yeah, I really like the point that you bring up. It's like, I'm not a medical doctor. You're not a medical doctor, right? We're not scientists, but we did our homework. We educated ourselves. We read books. By the way, all the information in Vegan Made Easy, there's an extensive section at the end that tells all of the sources where we got all of our information. But by doing this, by educating yourself, you actually become an expert and you never stop learning. It's constantly learning about different foods, about what's happening to animals, what's happening to the planet. I always kind of kid people when I talk to them and say, you know more about plant-based nutrition than your doctor does. And in many cases, that's true. I'm sure you're tired of, going into your doctor's appointment and they say, oh, are you getting enough protein? The typical questions.
When somebody asks you that, when somebody asks me that from now on, if you're getting enough protein, I'm going to say, are you getting enough fiber?
Yeah.
Because that's more important.
Yeah. So, I think part of our role as advocates is to bring up information in a very helpful, positive way. And one of the best ways to do that is talking about how going vegan has benefited yourself. James Aspey, who's the fantastic, I think he's Australian, right? He says this thing, don't blame or shame. Instead, explain. So I think that we could do it with a sense of humor, with a sense of joy, and say to others that this is such a wonderful avenue I've gone down and you're invited to join me. So it's a very positive, normal conversation. In the book, I include a quote by Claire Mon, who wrote Vistopia. She's a vegan psychologist, and she has this wonderful quote about how we as vegans, we should just come across as happy, normal, well-adjusted people who happen to be vegan. And I think that's something to just kind of keep reminding ourselves that we're always positive in our interactions.
Right. Exactly. And, I say to people, don't argue with people.
Right.
Just let it be because it's not worth it. Plant the seed and move on. I know for a fact that that's happened to me where I've talked about veganism and somebody has come back and said something, snarky. I let it go. And then I met the person like 2-3 years later and
exactly. Yeah.
So, you see what I'm saying? So because when people attack veganism, I find it's just that they hear the word vegan or the concept vegan and right away they're on their,
defensive.
Defensive, what's coming at me? What's coming at me? So that's one problem, that people tend to do that. And I think it's because of the misinformation that's out there. And because, again, the government and even medical places, I'm not talking about, Physicians for Committee on Responsible Medicine, because they're trying to change that, but other facilities that don't promote veganism, plant-based eating. that we know for a fact, well, I know for a fact that it, took away my fibromyalgia, which I suffered for many,
Right. I
many
remember you
years.
mentioned that.
It took away my migraines, which were horrific. It took away the joint swellings and my bursitis. So I know for a fact that veganism works in helping you get healthier, right? And some people, there are stories of some people who have overcome diabetes, cancer, heart disease, So we know that the information, the scientific research on health is there to prove that veganism helps us all in our health. We know that there is scientific research out there that it helps with sustainability for the planet, which we need so badly to address. And of course, the main reason, of course, is the animal welfare and what we're doing to these innocent animals who are like children, and we are abusing and exploiting and not giving a damn about, which we need to change that.
Right. I was looking at some recent surveys, and there is some positive news. I think that more and more Americans are identifying themselves as flexitarian, which shows that there is, I think, a growing openness to reducing the consumption of animal products, at least that they are becoming more open to it. Of course, we would like everybody to go vegan overnight, but just the fact, I mean, change takes a while. And the fact that people are moving more in that direction is a positive sign. We know there are more vegan options in restaurants, in regular grocery stores. Um, I've noticed that there's more and more doctors who identify themselves as specializing in what you alluded to earlier, lifestyle medicine, so that people are looking at all aspects of how you live every day as contributing to your welfare. And it's not only physical, it's also environmental and mental health. We're starting to see more of a holistic approach to well-being, and I think that's really important. Um, and I do want to put in a plug for Dr. Michael Clapper, who I'm sure you know. He's started an initiative called Moving Medicine Forward, where he is going to hospitals and educating these doctors about healthy food. Although I do have to say, I was visiting someone in the hospital last week, and I guess they give the patients a kind of cardboard menu, and
Mhm.
for breakfast, there's bacon on there, there's sausage, there's eggs. It's like, wake up, people. Um, these are the worst foods you can possibly give to anyone, healthy or not. So we still have a lot of work to do, but those of us in the field pushing the right information out there, I think we're going to start making an impact.
Well, thank you very much, John, for being on the Vegan Pulse. Remember, people, your dollars are votes. So when you go to the grocery store or you buy anything, remember to buy cruelty free, to send your vote in for a more compassionate world.
And I'd also like to thank Lantern Publishing and Media, who published the book, for all the wonderful books that they put out there, not only about veganism, but animal rights, social justice, humane education. It's a great, great publishing company if you want to learn anything about how to live a more compassionate, fruitful, elevated life. So I want to thank you, Nancy, for having me on the show.
Thank you. It's always a pleasure.
Okay,
And
thank
maybe,
you.
and
Uh,
soon I hope to see you again.
yeah, okay, thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
All right.